This is the Lew Rockwell Show.
What an honor to have on the show today Mr. Jim Rogers. You know, they talk about a certain guy as being the sage of Omaha. Of course, that's baloney. But tonight I'm talking to the real sage, the sage of Singapore. Jim is the author of 5 books. I could talk about many, many things of his accomplishments. But I love his books, Investment Biker, Adventure Capitalist. But Jim, I know you've got a new book out, and it's called A Gift to My Children, A Father's Lessons for Life and Investing. What are those lessons?
That's a good question, Lou. I came to fatherhood very late in life. It's a good thing I did not have children when I was 20. It would not have been good for the mother or the child or me or anybody else. But one advantage of coming to fatherhood late is I got a whole lifetime of experience, both in the financial community and elsewhere. And I thought I should write all this down for my little girls so that hopefully it will guide them through life from my experiences, both good and bad, and also from what I've learned.
Jim, I know that the reason that you're in Singapore has something to do with those little girls.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think that in their lifetime, these girls were born in 2003 and 2008, and I am convinced that in their lifetime, Asia is going to be the most important continent, so I'm here for them. And I want them to grow up speaking Mandarin fluently, like natives. I want them to understand Asia and America. Obviously, we're American citizens and vote and pay taxes in America. So I'm hoping that I'm going to give them the best of both worlds.
Well, it's just fantastic. And, it seems like the United States is slitting its own throat economically and financially. Of course, what the Bush administration did, the Obama administration. And I noticed that you've recently said that you think maybe this mini boom that Mr. Obama and his Federal Reserve have given us recently may be coming to an end in the stock market.
Well, yes, I don't know when it's going to come to an end. It's a very powerful rally, Lou, and in my experience, when any asset rallies like this, it usually lasts a while. I think we've certainly seen a bottom. I'm not convinced we've seen the bottom yet, and whether the bottom is this month, this summer, or this fall, I don't know. Whether things start going down again, or maybe even next year. But no, I'm not rushing in to buy stocks in the U.S. or anywhere else for that matter.
Today, I noticed that Mr. Obama had a town meeting in New Mexico, and it was about his credit card bill to restrict credit cards. But he gave everybody a lecture that the United States government was in too much debt, as if, of course, it was the fault of the American people, and not that he had nothing to do with it, that it was threatening higher interest rates, that the U.S. couldn't keep borrowing from China, and we were going to have to live within our means. Is he just telling a joke, or what is that? I mean, it's all true, but I mean, he has something to do with it.
Well, that's a different question. Well, we certainly do have to live within our means. I mean, I wish Mr. Obama and many, many other people had figured that out last year, the year before, the decade before, the 2 decades before. But, it's got to be done. And whether we do it ourselves voluntarily or whether the market forces us to do it, which I'm afraid is what is going to happen, that's usually what happens. Most countries don't have serious reform until there's a crisis or a semi-crisis. So far, even with this crisis or semi-crisis, depending on your definition, we still aren't reforming. We're still spending more. The concept, Lou, the solution to a problem of too much borrowing and too much spending is more borrowing and more spending just defies sanity. I just can't comprehend what they're doing.
Well, I heard him earlier say, this is maybe a few weeks ago, that we needed to have much more frugality, spend less, borrow less, but for right now, of course, spend everything, borrow everything. And that's about, that's the no mention of what the theory is behind that.
Well, you and I both know that they're talking out of both sides of their mouth. All they want to do in Washington is get reelected. They have to buy votes from as many people as they can, and the way you buy votes these days, not these days, always, is just give somebody some money. And so they're out giving people your money and my money. They're taking money away from 300 million taxpayers who, for the most part, have done things right, or 300 million Americans, I should say, and giving it to the few 100,000 or the few million who didn't do things right. It's outrageous that 300 million of us have to suffer for the sins of a couple of million, or 5 million, I don't know how many.
Jim, have they killed the dollar as far as a world reserve currency, or maybe even as far as our own internal currency?
Yes, no, I'm afraid that they have over the past. We have. I mean, unfortunately, Lou, people deserve the government they get. Well, I guess we elected these guys. It's astonishing. You and I probably didn't vote for any of them, but still,
no,
they're there, and it's they're destroying the U.S. dollar, which has been the world's reserve currency, the world's medium of exchange for about 60 years now. But now America's the largest debtor nation in the history of the world, and the foreign debts are increasing at gigantic rates. I mean, this is a system that is in the process of bankrupting itself, which means it's bankrupting America. And they sit there. I guess their theory is that by the time they are gone, I mean, they can hold it all together until they're gone, and then it won't matter. I mean, that's what Bush did, obviously. He held it together until he was gone, and now Obama's going to get the blame. But this cannot continue.
Well, I always get a kick out of Mr. Bernanke saying that don't worry about inflation. If prices start to rise, he'll withdraw all the new money. As far as I can tell, this has, of course, never happened in the history of the world that a central bank has withdrawn money. They exist to inflate, after all, so they're hardly in a position to do that.
It has never happened. You have had occasional, rare cases where a central bank has started or talked about withdrawing the money, but as soon as they realize the consequences, they completely reverse their course, and the next thing you have inflation. No, this has been going on for a few hundred years. As you know, the governments have debased the currency and caused inflation. It's happening again. Even the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which is a government agency which reports inflation, who's been lying to us about inflation for 20 or 30 years, anybody listening to this program knows they've been lying, but even they say in their numbers that prices are still going up. They take out energy. I mean, the energy, of course, has been going down. So they say we don't have much inflation. But if you get into the numbers and look at the numbers, you will see that every sector of the economy that they report on has had increasing prices, even according to them, and they lie about it. So inflation's here. I mean, everybody listening to the show knows that the prices are not going down for most things. You go to the dentist or the doctor or the accountant, or lots of them. Take a taxi, pay a toll. You know the prices aren't going down.
Jim, you and I remember the evil day of August 15, 1971, when President Nixon closed the gold window and put price and wage controls on. Do you think we face a danger of price and wage controls once the prices start to go up? Will Obama do that?
Well, again, as you know, because you know a lot about history, politicians always take the easy way out, the temporary way out, the shortcut whenever things go wrong. Wage and price controls, the Republicans did it, the Democrats have done it in various times in American history, so of course they're going to do that. When prices are going berserk, they're going to blame it on everybody except themselves, rather than doing the honorable thing and say, guys, we have really messed up, we're going to resign. They're going to say, no, it's your fault, you're the ones who caused these problems, and now you're going to have to suffer. And they're going to say, Lew, as they always do, these are temporary, don't worry, and it won't affect you very much. And of course, in weeks, months, years later, we're still suffering the effects.
It seems like the Obama administration, and I guess certainly there have been previous administrations in American history that had a similarly anti-business attitude, Franklin Roosevelt and so forth, but already they have an anti-business attitude, and they're openly expressing it. If things really start, well, I should say when things really start to go bad in terms of inflation and other problems, just how much is this anti-capitalist attitude, what kind of an effect is that going to have on policy? I mean, what do you think they might actually do to us?
Well, the good news or the bad news is that they're going to be more and more limited in what they do because the markets are just not going to let them. I mean, they can try to do various and sundry things, but then right now they're controlling the long-term bond market, or trying to, but eventually they're not going to be able to do a lot of these things. Eventually the market's just going to say no. I hope it doesn't happen in the next few years, but there could very well be social unrest in America too. And there's not a whole lot that they're going to be able to do if things get as bad as they could under their system. You have to remember, Mr. Obama ran on two platforms. He ran on the platform to tax capital. Now, what kind of genius would tax capital, raise taxes on capital in period of the greatest capital shortages in history? His other platform was protectionism. Well, he's already started talking more and more protectionist, and so his basic instincts are anti-capital, which is what America desperately needs, and protectionism, which could lead to disaster, just as it did in the 1930s. So I'm afraid his instincts, even if he knew what he was doing, which he doesn't, his instincts are such that he wants more controls and things which will devastate the economy and the world, not just America, the world